All right, great. Well, thank you for being here. Let me go ahead and call the meeting to order. Welcome you. Thank you for being a part of this. Personnel Board of Appeals. First order of business, why don't we do the oath of office and then we'll do a roll call. So with that, ask Mr. Breen to administer the oath.
Okay. You can stand and raise your right hand. When I say state your name, you say your name versus state your name.
Roger that.
I state your name.
I, Amy Barza,
Do hereby solemnly swear
do hereby solemnly swear
or affirm
or affirm
that I will support
that I will support
the laws of the United States
the laws of the United States
of America,
of America,
the state of Ohio,
the state of Ohio,
and the city of Sunbury,
and the city of Sunbury,
and to faithfully,
and to faithfully,
honestly,
honestly,
and impartially
and impartially
discharge my duties
discharge my
as
duties
a member
as a member
of the Sunbury Personnel Board of Appeals
of the Sunbury Personnel Board of Appeals
for the duration
for the
of my
duration
term in office.
of my term in office. Thank you.
Justin?
Thank you.
Come on in.
Just
Just in the nick of time.
Well,
We'll administer the oath for you. We gotta
see. You're gonna get sworn. Actually, you're gonna get sworn now. Hello.
hi.
Just give us oath of office.
Okay,
When I say state your name, you're gonna say your name, not state your name.
all right.
Raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Justin Wood,
Do hereby solemnly swear
do hereby solemnly swear
or affirm
or affirm
that I will support
that I will support
the laws of the United States of America,
the laws of the United States of America,
the state of Ohio,
state of Ohio,
and the city of Sunbury,
and the city of Sunbury,
and to faithfully,
and faithfully,
honestly,
honestly,
and impartially
and impartially
discharge my duties
discharge my duties
as a member
as a member
of the Sunbury Personnel Board of Appeals
of the Sunbury Personnel Board of Appeals
for the duration
for the duration
of my term in office.
of my term in office. Thank you.
I'm going to ask you each to sign above your name.
Okay.
You go first.
Oh, thank you. My pen is stuck. Thank you. That-
There you go.
Sunbury traffic.
The Sunbury traffic. It'll do that.
It's always at this time of day.
There
too.
is a rush hour in
Isn't
Sunbury.
there?
There is.
Yes.
All right, let me do the roll call and then we'll get into the other business. So Ms. Berger,
Here.
Ms. Mazza,
Here.
Mr. Wood.
Yeah.
3 present, we have a quorum. All right, and then the next item of business is the election or the selection of a chairperson. So so we need one of you to step up and serve as the chair. We'll assist you with future meetings, so don't feel like it's a heavy responsibility. I mean, it is some additional responsibility to run the meetings, but if there's a volunteer, we always welcome that.
Not particularly interested.
I called for Justin to be the chair.
You've nominated Mr. Wood. Are
I
there-
nominate,
Yes. Are there any other nominations? If not, are there any objections to closing the nominations? Hearing none. If there are no objections, Mr. Wood, you are the new chairperson.
Maybe do a vote. All in
Oh,
favor?
all in favor?
I
I,
All right, 3-0, motion approved. All right, thank you, Mr. Wood. We appreciate that. All right, let's maybe do some introductions because everybody here is new. So who wants to go? Well, why don't we, our new chair, you can go first.
all right, well, my name is Justin Wood. I grew up in Sunbury since the age of 10. My parents still live here in town. We had recently moved back about 7 years ago. I work as a independent manufacturer representative selling contract furniture to senior living. I have a history in the Army and government program management, and I've served in the church and various civic duties.
I'm Amy Berger. I am not originally from Sunbury. Grew up out in Licking County though, so close enough. I've been in Sunbury for a couple years now. Been in Big Walnut schools for several years. I work at a bank. I also have prior Army experience, so we got that in common. Yeah. Oh.
Review Commission.
Oh, yeah, I was a member of the Charter Review Commission most recently, so very excited to be here.
Nice.
I'm Crystal Mazza, mom, wife, community volunteer, and substitute teacher here in Big Walnut. We have lived here since 2012. We moved in December from Texas, and I thought it was Alaska because it was so cold and miserable. It was a record-setting winter. But since then, this has truly become home for our family and from this Texas gal. So pleased to be here to serve my community.
Great, thank you. I'm Daryl Hennessy. I'm the city administrator at the city of Sunbury.
David Brame, Law Director, Sunbury.
I'm Ben Albrecht and I'm special counsel on various events when they asked me to come out.
Nice to meet you all.
All right, so if we move on to the approval of the rules, and that's one of the primary reasons, that's one of the main activity for tonight's meeting, I believe. We've invited Ben to help us walk through those. In your packet is a copy of the rules that have been drafted by staff and with the assistance of legal counsel. So maybe with that, Ben, if you want to just kind of call out, kind of the role of the board, the rules.
Sure. So I don't use the button that is automatically on.
It'll be on.
Okay. So yeah, so the rules that are set forth here that you're about to approve and go through generally govern everything it is that you guys do as a board. So after they're approved, take it home, read through them, and then you probably won't need to touch them again until you have another meeting as it may arise. But generally speaking, your responsibility as a board is to assist the city with the governance of its civil service employees and civil service systems. So you have a role in approving employment eligibility lists for employees to certain positions within the classified service. So there are certain positions that the city has to have a civil service test for. Those tests will be scored, employees will be ranked, and when that process is done, you'll be presented what's known as an eligibility list, and it'll be your job to approve that eligibility list so the city can appoint employees from that list, and that list will stay in existence consistent with the rules or until you take action to expire the list upon the request of city staff. And that's a process that staff, when that time comes up, someone will be here and they'll help you walk through that process with respect with respect to your job, your role. Another function and responsibility that you have that's outlined in this process in these rules is the disciplinary process. So if there is an employee in civil service, there are two types of employees. There are unclassified employees, which are at will, and then there are classified employees. And those classified employees can only be disciplined for just cause. And if the city would take the position that they want to terminate a classified employee, suspend a classified employee, demote a classified employee, that employee would have the right to appeal the city's decision to you. And at that point, there would be a mini hearing and you would serve as the tribunal and ultimately make the decision as to whether or not there was just cause for the city's action taken against that employee. And again, that's not a process you're necessarily going to have to memorize what the rules require. Not going to put you in a spot where you have to make difficult evidentiary decisions. Typically what happens in that situation is you'll have counsel walk you through that process. Mr. Breen will be there, whoever the law director is. If it's 20 years down the road, we'll be there to assist you in making those decisions and make sure you do that, what you're supposed to do. You will just be tasked with making the decision was the discipline for just cause? You vote yay or nay, and then go from there. The employee will likely be represented by counsel. The city and prosecuting the charges will be represented by counsel, and just do the hearing before you and go through that process. Along the way, I believe you have the ability to subpoena witnesses, so you may be asked to do that, subpoena records. So there's certain things that you may be required to do prior to the hearing to move the process along. But again, that's something that when it comes up, and candidly, it doesn't come up very often. But when it does come up, there will be someone to help walk through that process with you. In the event of a layoff within the city, if the city were to lay off those classified employees, there's a specific process the city has to follow. If an employee feels like the city didn't follow that process, those appeals go to you. And again, it's one of those things, there'll be someone to help you work through the process, but you'll ultimately make the decision as to whether or not that process was followed. Disability separations is another situation where you may have to oversee an appeal or a hearing, and that's where the city may separate an employee that becomes medically incapacitated. And again, you'll be able to review evidence and make a decision as to whether or not that's appropriate. So those are the big things that you do. Those are set forth in your rules. And if you really want to go through the rules and have a better understanding as to what things are, I can point out some of the big ones. The preamble regurgitates Ohio law and provisions from the Sunbury Charter that outline what your roles and responsibilities are and what the civil service is. The civil service system is a mechanism to avoid effectively favoritism, where employees are to be appointed because they may be an elected official's favorite person. So there's a process in place to make sure that all appointments to positions within the classified service are for merit. And that's what the process is. And that's what you oversee. And that's what these rules tend to address. There's a pretty healthy definition section that as you read through that, some of these terms will be defined and will give you a better idea as to what that means. But as I mentioned, you oversee the classified service, which are defined in the rules as everybody who's not in the unclassified service. But again, they held their position for just cause. But then there's unclassified positions, and those are the positions that you need to have some discretion in appointing positions based upon what they do. So they're like the city administrator, the law director, various department directors. And again, those are outlined within here. So you won't hear appeals related to them. It'll be the generally the frontline employees or the lower level non-supervisory employees. Eligibility list, you can read about that in here. Probationary periods, that's in there because employees serve probationary periods, and if they get disciplined or let go in their probationary period, there's no appeal rights to you. So these rules may become relevant in the event of an appeal, but it's nothing you have to know off the top of your head or be able to recall what your obligations and responsibilities are. Again, someone will be there to help you out. The powers and duties of the board, those are outlined within the rules. And again, we've kind of gone over those. It's generally to hear appeals and help the city with eligibility lists to make sure that the appointments are consistent with the notions of civil service and fair play. There's a provision in the rules regarding open meetings. So all your decisions and all your discussions regarding matters related to things pending before you have to occur in sunshine. So if you're making a decision on whether or not discipline is appropriate for a civil classified employee, when you make your decisions and have your deliberations, those will occur in sunshine on the record. Now, you may be able to go in and have some executive sessions along the way with your counsel who will guide you. But generally speaking, all your discussions are going to occur in sunshine. So it's going to be, and again, this board, it rarely happens, but some other boards and commissions, members tend to get text happy and email happy. So you don't want to do that. And the law director will probably advise you to knock it off. But all your discussions about matters pending before you should occur during a scheduled meeting to discuss a specific issue and happen in sunshine in these types of meetings. And when you schedule a meeting, you'll have an agenda in advance. You'll know what the agenda is. You'll know what it's about. So you'll have some idea. You won't come in blind. It'll be important because we need to have a quorum anytime you have a meeting, that if there's a meeting scheduled or there's a quorum call for a meeting, that you let the city know that you're going to be here or not be here, so that way we can make sure the meeting can be held and appropriate action can be taken. Some of the other rules in there talk about the civil service examination process. And again, that's nothing you have to understand or have, be ready to grasp what your responsibilities are. What most likely happens is the city's going to say, hey, we need to fill a position. We need to have a test. Can you authorize a test? And you'll approve the test and go through that process. The test will come back, the eligibility list will be created, and they'll want you to approve the eligibility list so that they can make appointments from it. And again, those are all things that staff will provide specific direction along the way as to how to respond. Layoffs, there's a provision in there on layoffs, and it pretty much just governs what the order is, what the process is, what the reasons are. So that way, if you ever have to hear an appeal of a layoff, you'll understand what the city has to show: lack of work, lack of funds, reorganization for a business reason. So you'll understand that the city will have to come in and say, this is why we're doing it. We hit all the notice requirements, and then you'll make a decision whether or not the layoff's appropriate. And again, you'll have legal guidance along the way. Discipline, same thing. There's the rules as to how discipline applies. If you ever have to hear a disciplinary appeal, you will be provided copies of this specific provision regarding discipline to consider. And you'll also receive copies of the city's policies and procedures manuals, which is going to govern the expectations. But again, that's something that the city is going to have to establish, that there's just cause for the discipline. There was a rule, the employee knew the rule, the employee violated the rule, and the discipline is appropriate. That's generally your job to determine whether those criteria are met. And again, along the way, you'll be provided guidance about what to do. Hearings, like I said, you'll have a hearing. You can swear witnesses, direct witnesses, set rules for the hearings. Generally, those are outlined on a case-by-case basis when the appeals come up. If it's a termination case, you may set broader parameters on the hearing process. If it's a layoff, if it's a disability separation, then the hearing process may be a little bit more narrow, and you can set the rules on a case-by-case basis. So that's one of the things that you will have some flexibility to do. And counsel for all parties and the law director will certainly help guide you through that along the way. Periodically, you may want to amend the rules. There's a process in the rules for that as well. And typically what happens, Sunbury's a new city, transition from village to city, which means there's various new issues that it may have to deal with. So as the city grows, as the services that it provides continues to grow, it may say, hey, we need to expand what some of these rules are in this well, I guess the rules. So we need to modify these. We need to adjust these. We need to provide more military credit. There could be a whole host of things that come up that the city would have the ability to approach you to say, hey, we would like to make this change in this rule to make it easier to hire someone, to bring in a lateral transfer, to provide prior service credit for something. And again, they come present it to you, and you can decide whether or not it makes sense or it's reasonable to update the rules and amend the rules. And you'll take a vote. Someone will make a motion to amend the rules as presented, maybe second and voted upon, and there you go. So again, that's all part of the process. And all along the way, city staff will advise you on how to handle those issues. So those are the rules in a nutshell. Obviously, if you read them and have questions, you can ask me now or circulate it back through staff, and I'd be happy to send an email or talk to you later if that's what everybody wishes. But your role should be relatively painless, and city staff will do that which it can do to guide you along the way to the extent that you have questions.
I have two questions.
Sure.
First one, does union come into play here at all?
Yes, so generally no. So the answer is, so like the police department's unionized.
Okay.
And their discipline and layoff, I don't know if layoffs are, but generally discipline certainly is going to be covered in their collective bargaining agreement. Now, to the extent that the collective bargaining agreement may be silent on hiring or promotion. So In civil service, there's a term of art called an original appointment and a promotional appointment. An original appointment is to a entry-level position. So in the police department, even though they have a contract, it would be a police officer. That's generally not covered in the collective bargaining agreement. So if there's a request for an eligibility list or a testing process, they may still come to you for that, for an entry-level process, but you won't hear discipline from a union contract. So.
And about how many classified employees work for the city?
Good question. Well, we've got about 50, just short of 50 employees total now. Well, I don't know. So if we,
And the police department's how many?
I was gonna say, and it's, let's just say roughly 20 of that.
Leaves 30.
We're at 30 and probably 10 of the positions are unclassified. So, yeah, I mean, it's a handful. It's not a big number at the moment, but,
Doesn't.
yeah, I would agree at most.
Yeah, so generally in cities such as this, cities all over the state of Ohio, police officers organize and get represented by union. That's what they do. So they're kind of carved out. Now they're technically classified employees based upon how they're hired in, but then they go under the contract. And then it's more of your street department, public service department employees. They are covered the rest of it.
Like the ones who got the football out of our street lamp when the boys on the street threw it up there, like that? Okay.
That would be those guys. Yes.
God bless them.
So one thing, I don't know, I don't want to step on your toes if you're going to cover this, but so if you do have a hearing before you as a board, and it happens sometimes that there may be some conflict along the way, or there's something that you're just uncomfortable presiding over it. That's when you would reach out to the law director's office, one, to see if you have a conflict. As the general rule of thumb, if you believe there's appearance of impropriety, it's probably appropriate to recuse yourself and not be involved in the decision-making process. But again, we want to make sure there's a quorum, so that's why you vet it through the law director's office to make sure we can still proceed. But if you're going to recuse yourself, you recuse yourself from the jump. You don't sit through the hearing, you don't ask questions, you don't take notes, and then abstain from a vote. Do it from the very outset of the process and then go from there. If you are a no vote in the process, generally it helps to have a explanation rationale as to why you're a no vote. So don't just say no and then, think you can keep it to yourself. You're going to have to provide that explanation on the record.
Other questions, comments?
So how long is there a timeline of when they can come forward with an appeal and how much time we have to review it ahead of time?
Yeah, so there is a timeline in there as to how long they have to appeal it. I think there's so if there's a discipline that they have to serve. I think it's within 14 days, but I can't, don't hold.
Okay.
And then from there, generally speaking, you have the right to set an appeal. And I think that's a pretty broad timeline as to when that would occur. But typically what happens is you set it, or if they have a counsel along the way, it gets set by mutual agreement, so that there's really no issue with respect to that.
Okay.
But they do have a timeline to appeal. Yeah, so so they have to file the appeal within 10 days of when the discipline is served upon them, and then you have to hear the matter within 30 days. So
It's fast.
yeah, but that's so in reality though, you'll reach out. There'll be a lot of discussions with counsel, and okay, trying to find a date that works for everybody is sometimes the hardest part of the process. And so then if you end up 45 days out, then you just do it by agreement and go make sure you go on the record, hey, the parties agreed to do this, so that's documented. And then if it continues on day by day by day by day and continues over a period of months, again, once that starts, as long as you get the timeline and by consent of counsel, you're good. Some of these hearings can be lengthy. And generally there hits to be a period of time where if we go too late, there's a diminishing returns on it. So you say, hey, let's just reschedule and come back in a week or two, and everybody's usually pretty good with that.
seeing this ethics portion in the packet. Do we need to, as civil servants, pass an ethics course that went online that is required of board members and stuff? No, okay, just checking.
Again, but to the extent you ever have an ethics concern, reach.
Okay. No worries. I have no ethics. I had to take it for a mental health board, so I didn't know if that was
Yeah.
required.
Yeah, so it was on the agenda so we could talk a little bit about it. So appreciate Ben raising that. Yeah, so we'll talk just a smidge more about it here in a minute, but
Okay.
want to just stay on the rules at this point and
Oh, gotcha.
just if there are any other questions or comments regarding the rules. Is there?
No.
Is there a motion to approve the rules as submitted?
I motion to approve.
I'll second.
So moved by Ms. Berger, seconded by Ms. Mazza. Ms. Berger,
Yes.
Ms. Mazza,
Yes.
Mr. Wood,
Yes.
3 yeas, motion approved. Great, thank you. All right, and the next items that are on the agenda, again, Ben alluded to a couple of these are, so let's, Dave, I just didn't know if you wanted to share some thoughts in terms of just general meeting procedures, sunshine law, public records, just the general advice you give our members.
I'll jump onto the sunshine law and public records, and again, Ben hinted to this. As a 3-person board, you are a little bit unique as opposed to bigger bodies, right? There's 5 of you up there, 7 of you up there. You know, Ohio law requires, as Ben said, all activities, all conduct of the public body to be held in the sunshine, which means in a meeting. Right, that's what that means, right? So any prearranged discussion of public business by a majority of the body, not in the meeting, is a violation of sunshine law. So for you guys, a majority is 2. That means you can't talk about it. Now, if there were 6 of you up there and 2 of you wanted to talk, that's not a majority, you could talk, right? But there's only 3, so there's really no discussion outside of this. Now, you can discuss with staff. You know, if you have questions, as Ben hinted, about ethics issues, about what's this going to be like, about, you know, whatever, I feel like I might have a conflict. You know, I know this person, or I know their family, or whatever that might be. Do not hesitate as soon as you know that is an issue to pick up the phone and call Daryl or me, or, you know, and if it's Daryl and it involves me, he's gonna, the next thing he's do is hang up and call me, right? But that's what we're there for, right? So in today's world, it's usually not the talking, although it can be, right? It's, you know, he mentioned appearance of impropriety. That's the thing. It's not necessarily impropriety, it's the appearance of impropriety. You're on this board. If there's something pending before this board, and all of a sudden you're over at the grill, or you're at District 13, or you're at Serve having lunch together, you may not be talking about anything having to do this. You could be recalling Army days, right? But that's not what it looks like. Right, so it's the appearance of the impropriety. So you have to avoid in those prearranged discussions. I would just avoid them. It doesn't mean you can't be at the same social event. And certainly if nothing's pending, nothing's pending. There's nothing to talk about. But
So it's fine right now if we are out in public.
yeah, right. So you know, graduation, your graduation party, not a big deal. And to talk about generally, you do this and what your roles are. That's, you know, it's a nothing. But to talk about anything particular about these rules, amending these rules, a case, an appeal, you know, a job list, a classification list, can't do that. The other thing you really have to be aware of is your cell phones and the texting. And he mentioned that. You know, your texts on your cell phone, if they're dealing with public business, are public record, and they can be subpoenaed. And you have to turn it over. And they're going to go through that cell phone, and you can say, yeah, that's to my spouse, or that's to my kids, or that's this or that, and fine. But still somebody's going to look at it, right? So my advice to people is keep your private business on your cell phone private. Don't engage in texting about public business on your cell phone unless you want that cell phone to be subject to somebody looking through every text. If somebody develops, and usually it's because they have an issue, right? hopefully you're not doing anything, but you know, you're also involved in something where people are upset, right? So if they're upset, maybe they will lash out, and for whatever reason, nothing you've done. So my advice is stay away from the texting. And really, you can't talk to each other anyway, right, about anything having to do with this, not even two of you. So, and we're glad to answer any questions that come up, but you know, obviously you're gonna have issues. When you go through the ethics laws, really, it's in there just so you know, about what the laws are and, you know, how they apply to you. As you go through those, if there's any questions along with any of these rules that you approve, just feel free to reach out to Daryl and he'll get in touch with Ben or I as needed.
Yeah, the other thing is, have we set up email accounts, city email accounts for the group? Okay, we need to do that, but that's also, even if you're communicating to staff with via email, that also is part of the public record process. So let's make sure we get
I'm
the
good on
email.
mine.
Yeah, I know we've got one for you, but
Yeah, anything
That-
you
that's-
need to
yeah.
communicate by email, use that, you know, city again. Don't use your personal. Just.
Yeah.
That way, if anything ever comes up, I don't use that. Zero for city business and they have to go away.
Now, does that apply with smartphones and email?
But yeah, applies to any email.
Yeah, so if email's on your phone,
From your phone or your workstation or whatever.
so maybe keep the city email off your personal cell phone.
You know, I don't know necessarily that you have to do that. I'm just saying the email communication should only be using that email versus your personal email account.
That's understood.
Yeah.
Okay,
Because as soon as they start looking at the emails, well, we've got the emails as well.
We have
Everything back
access.
and forth between the city, they just, you know.
okay. No issues.
all right. And as David indicated, the ethics law is in there. If you get a chance to review that, if you have any questions, we're certainly available to assist you there. So. The only other item of business I had on here is setting a meeting date. Now that I'm thinking about this, I mean, is this they meet as called type thing? So we probably shouldn't have a standing date. Okay. If you're okay with that. I know it took us a while to get the group together. Your schedules are very busy, but yeah, if that's the better strategy, then we'll go that route then.
And I mean, it's like jury duty. If you're gonna be called, you'd like to get involved in something spicy. See what it's like. Okay, maybe. You know, I've been doing the water record thing for a long time, since '98. And we had one appeal. Now, it used to be appeals to council, but we had one.
One appeal since
But
'98.
with attorneys and the whole thing and, oh yeah. No.
City is growing.
That means we're good.
Speaking in the city, we like to do a good job with our employees.
Yeah.
Not that we don't ever have discipline issues, but sometimes discipline's there because it needed to be there.
Right.
But it's that
Yeah.
needed. I mean, you
Yeah.
may be. And again, there are some things they're gonna need to meet for no matter what, right?
Right.
Developing our lists and those type of things, so.
So there hasn't been personal action review for eligibility with the expansion of the village becoming a city to this point,
Not to this point.
not to this point. Okay. Maybe,
But
so.
we're in the process of getting something together.
Okay,
But that's also what you're doing here. I mean, this is the first set of rules that we've had governing these issues in the city. So, I mean, we do have an ordinance and it does reference ordinances in here, you know, as one of the considerations for establishing personnel policy. But so we do have that, but these are the first set of rules to support that or accompany that.
Right.
All right. If there's no other business, motion to adjourn.
Motion.
motion to adjourn.
Oh, I second then.
All right.
Sure did.
Moved by Mr. Wood, seconded by Ms. Berger. Mr. Wood,
Yes.
Ms. Berger,
Yes.
Ms. Mazza,
Yes.